talk about an abdominal curl, the right way and the wrong way. So often we go to the gym, don't we, and we see this curling into the spine.
The crunch.
The crunch, the famous crunch. Tell us how we can improve that and avoid injury.
Well, you want to be aware at all times of those 4 places in your spine that want to crease and hinge. So if you lift your head up off the mat by bringing your chin down towards your chest, if you slide the whole neck forward, it facilitates movement. It's easy to move there. But you will have the weight of your head and your neck in that lift, and you will be adding the weight in a very concentrated way into those 2 hinges of the upper spine. So when you feel all of that congestion and that fatigue in the muscles on the front of your neck, most of the time people will reach back with their hands to try to hold their head up. Well, we're getting farther and farther and farther away from the correct way to do it. You want to think about the muscles around your neck as being a turtleneck. And in the whole circumference of that turtleneck, their main job is to continue the proper orientation of the circular skull on the circular ribs. So use all of your neck muscles to maintain the relationship of your head to your chest and flex your spine between your shoulder blades. That's where the movement occurs to come up. And that's what gives us a nice long open throat for our upper body curl. We want to make sure as well that hinge 3 at the base of the rib cage is not compromised. The cue, draw the ribs to the hip, is a nightmare for your low back. So anytime the ribs move toward the hip without a huge fight from the back muscles trying to prevent it, we've got problems. And we do see that very, very commonly in an upper body float, an ab curl with a crunch.
And this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
You've got to understand your spine is still in there. And just because for the sake of an exercise, you're going to do to your back what you would never do to it sitting all day at your desk, you cannot forgive yourself in the name of Pilates for doing things that are damaging to your spine. Your spine is not issuing an exemption from the realities of force and load coming through it just because you're trying to do a Pilates class at the gym. So the correct way to come up is to try to keep movement and load distributed over as great a distance as possible in your spine. That's your only safety rule. And staying long, lift the upper body up. There you go. Much more room for the most vulnerable part of your back, your low back.
So just to show you again, this is the bad way to do an abdominal curl or a crunch, because we're crunching into our spine, aren't we, Rebecca?
Correct. So as she does that, as she shows you the very commonly performed version of this, you have to imagine that her spine is way in the back of her structure. And as you see the front of her body shorten, that is what recreates the bad posture position. Anytime the base of the ribs move toward the hips or the hips move up toward the base of the ribs, your low back is in there getting a lot of pressure on the front of the structures and a lot of pressure on the back of the structures in ways that it was not designed to take.
So the correct way then to fix this is we want to go out with length. So we're reaching through the top of the head. We're not crushing into the ribs like before.
It's much harder to perform,
Yep.
But you can see how much more airspace she has within which to lengthen her body. Joseph Pilates, when he wrote about lengthening, he put dashes. It was before there were emoticons, and he had to use dashes between each of the letters of the word. He was about your spine being long, which is why if you know about Joe, you'll know that he was a safe teacher, because he understood, without being able to articulate the technical aspects of it like we can today, exactly how Pilates was built to be so powerful for your spine.
Yep.
This
And
is the
there's
beginning, a huge difference, and this is the beginning of a sit-up. You would just simply start to build the strength down the segments in order to be able to lift a little more.
So just to go over that again for you, We want to avoid the normal or traditional way of crunching where our ribs are shortening and moving towards the ribs. Okay, that's on your don't list. And then we want to lengthen and keep the space here. A great way to do this, Rebecca, isn't it, with the hands on the hips and the thumbs on the ribs? Because if you create that space and that space is still there when you're doing the movement, you will feel a heck of a lot of difference with the spine and the stabilizing muscles.
Absolutely.
There's a lot more shaking internally, but that's a good thing, isn't it?
It is. And at that point, you have a chance of actually using each of the little packets of muscles that connect up and down your back. When you slouch and hinge, when you come up the traditional way, you are concentrating the movement in certain parts of your spine that are going to wear out first anyway, because they are where the movement of the spine and its capabilities transitions, and it's where the big bony vaults of the skull, the ribs, and the pelvis meet the unencumbered spine that runs between them. So much safer, much more difficult, and you have not abandoned logic. If you do nothing more than stay logical, understand that your spine is in the back of your body, and anytime you recreate a bad posture position, there isn't anybody in the world who knows about spines and what injures and damages and breaks them that thinks it's a good idea under load to change the shape of your low back.